want to go into some things to consider in this first video. Someone said, like, what should we consider foundationally without, drugs and alcohol being the main, part of this, since the financial abuse that I've gone through was a result of that person's addiction. That's not for everybody. So I wanted to honor that request and talk about some of the core things, and then we'll get into each specific thing in another video. But one of the first things I really want you to think about, how do you individually and collectively as a couple handle stress? So think about your partner for a second. Think about, how are they when they're maybe stuck in traffic? How are they when they get like a bad performance review at work? What are they like when they haven't had very much sleep? What are they like when their parent has a health scare? What are they like when they get a parking ticket? What about when they have to call customer service about something? When you are in the beginning part of your relationship, I think that people will check themselves a lot more because they want to be on their best behavior. They want to present the best version of themselves because they're newly in love and you want to settle down with someone, right? This early time in romance is really fun, a really nice rosy period, but it's not reality because it denies us a glimpse into who they are when they're under pressure. And when you have children, marriage, home, bills, real life issues, pandemic, stress, all of those things, it brings on a level of pressure that really is hard to handle for some people. You need to really think about how they handle stress, how you handle stress, and then like when you add all those factors together, are you a team when you've got to handle something? Is this person your teammate or do they make your life harder? I've ignored some signs in the past where it was like when things were tough, they made things tougher. They didn't make it easier on me. So that was something I should have taken note of. You need to have a gauge on when you're going through hard things. Can you come together or do things really blow up and get worse? You have to process them a lot because if it's going on early on in your relationship, it will only probably likely amplify. So I said I wasn't going to go into like the drugs and alcohol, but I do think that it does have something to do with something you should consider, and that is your partner's relationships to drugs and alcohol. Gambling and substance abuse, that can crop up at any time. In my marriage, it came because of the pandemic, but I really felt blindsided, like I had whiplash from the alcoholism because I'd never been a part of our world at all. Now, looking back, there are many things that I chose to not acknowledge or outright denied because I didn't want to see it. Maybe out of fear, out of denial, out of staying in the relationship, not wanting to rock the boat. What can seem totally, normal for a young couple, during your childless years may be really different than what will be acceptable when you have children. Some people want to continue the same thing. They don't want to change or adjust when they have children. They want to continue on to have maybe a party lifestyle when that's like not conducive when they have a child. One parent might be on board and the other person won't be. So you really have to take a hard look at that and have those conversations of like, okay, if we're going to have children, if we're going to bring children into this world, are we going to continue to do this? Because I think that that's one of like, I've seen with friends of mine and in my own life, that can be really, really hard to deal with. Now, for some of you, you might live together or you may not because of religious reasons or life issues, but I do want you to think about when you do stay together, what are you like as roommates? Getting along like roommates is vital and important because when the spark has, gone down to a little simmer, you still want to like the person.
People, stop.
Really simple things like it's...
Sorry.
My dog is just throwing a fake snowball around trying to get my attention. Reese, baby.
Give me that. Give me that.
So you'll want to talk about like, what temperature do you like the house to be set on? I'm not joking, for real. To be super warm and the other person can't sleep unless it's cold.
It's a big problem.
Well, do your sleep schedules work out? That was a big source of contention. I would like to go to bed and I wanted to fall asleep with my partner. They wanted to stay up late and scroll and watch things and be downstairs and be alone. And so, you start to feel like distance can happen and you can start to feel really lonely and disconnected. Also want to talk about cleanliness. A lot of couples that I've worked with, this is a big thing where like one person likes the house to be tidier. They feel more productive and clearer headed when the house is tidy, and the other person just doesn't. It's not like a value for them. So you really want to talk about that as well and observe it, because it won't change when you're married. You can't really change it, I promise. I want to talk about decorating styles and chores and how you get things done. Also, if you have pets, like the food preparation or who's walking the dog, because oftentimes it just falls more on one person than the other, and then that causes resentment and it gets really worse. So have to talk about those things. And I know you're probably like,
Decorating styles.
but truthfully, like, it can be irritating. It can. Now, another one is your thoughts on kids. Are you on the same page with it? Do you want to have kids? So many times couples their feelings about children will change over time, and they'll want them and the other one maybe won't. And I've seen it cause, marriages to end. So you really want to talk about this. Virtually everybody would agree that talking about whether or not you would want kids is something that would obviously be talked about, but it's not. And you might be surprised how often this is a problem for couples. And it's because of the fact that people change. People change. When you're in your, mid to late 20s, 30s, mid 30s, 40s, you might have thought that you never wanted children, and then that like pang comes on that you want them. And then also think about like, okay, how many children? After one, sometimes a partner doesn't want any more and the other one wants 3 more. And you've really got to think about like, what would you do in those circumstances? And I would also say on that note, taking as a mother who has a child with, a disability, like really, really examine how would you feel if you had a child with a disability? How would you treat them? How would you handle that? What would that make you feel like? I think that it was something you think that, oh, of course we would love them no matter what. But then when it actually happens and you see how your partner reacts to them or lots of different things that could go on and on about this. Another thing to consider is, how are you with each other's families? How much time are you going to spend with each other's families? Will you break up the time equally? Will it be more with one family because of other issues with your partner's family? Think about like, what if your partner has a very like complicated relationship with their parents, but you find it hilarious and harmless, but that actually really hurts your partner that you feel that way. What role will your in-laws play in your lives and your children's lives? The planning of the wedding, it wasn't like that in my case, but the planning of the wedding usually will give you an insight to like how it can be. So if there's some squabbles, there's some tough stuff going on, know that that's likely in your future. You don't want to brush it off. Don't. Another really important thing to consider is, how okay am I with my partner's closeness to others, and like what would qualify as an emotional affair? So you want to talk about the styles of flirtation, emotional intimacy levels with coworkers, amount of work travel, the tendency to maybe go to lunch or happy hours with people. Is it okay if you're texting another person while you're side by side in bed? Would you be hurt if your partner had, lunch with an ex but didn't tell you? Every couple has to define this for themselves, and what works for one might not work for another, and you have to just talk openly about what you're actually comfortable with. You have to be honest, because the more you pretend that it will magically work out, even when there's differences, the more likely you will feel betrayed. Amount of hours at work needs to be discussed. That's another point I'm going to get to in a second, but it ties in with this because definitely my husband spent more hours on set working, and the person that he cheated on me with is somebody that he worked with. So who would have thought that the person that was swabbing his nose for COVID would end up being the person that he would, end up, cheating with? I mean, anybody. It can be anybody. You never know. So I think that it's something that's like really, really important to talk about. Another point would be, what's our expectation about where we're going to live geographically? Some people want to stay put forever. Others want to move around. Some people feel like, you want to divide time. Let's say if parents live on different coasts, you talk about like where you would actually want to end up. Maybe what one person's view of a temporary like adventure for a job, like the partner might view it as like their permanent home. One person assumed that they'd always move back to where their parents lived when they had children. And the other person's like, I don't want to live there. I don't want to live close to your parents, or I don't want to leave where I live. I love my friends and my where I am. Another big one is alone time. So who needs more free time? Who needs alone time? And is that actually okay? This all kind of like blends together, but it's something to think about, because like there's a couple that I know of that every Saturday the husband would go golfing for hours on end and then come home but wouldn't relieve the other parent, and that was not discussed and not fair. Like, but not even that. That's like a big chunk of time. It could be, I had a friend of mine who doesn't like to be talked to. As soon as she wakes up, she needs 15 minutes alone with her coffee. Does not want to hear a peep from anyone. And so having somebody that doesn't respect that is a problem. Very small things to very big, like you have to talk about alone time and how you want to spend it. Another thing would be to think about jobs. Like, how stuck are you in a job? What would happen if your partner got fired or wanted to leave the job? That affects finances, that affects where you live. Layoffs, pay cuts, transfers, firings, burnout. That can all change a person's employment in a blink of an eye. Is there one partner who their job is the more like dominant job? And that could be, it doesn't have to just be money. It could be their passion for it, prestige of the job. It could be the amount of hours worked. Are there expectations for who will make more money, who needs to stay put in the position that they're in, who will or will not stay home with children? Of course, nothing can be spelled out completely in advance, but it has to be discussed. Has to. I am a believer in, if you're unhappy at a job, that you should leave it because you spend so many hours at it. Like, you should go where you are happier. But I was in a relationship with somebody who didn't believe that, and so they always felt truly stuck and were unwilling to change. But I'm just like, it's not hard. Like, if you make less money, we'll just deal with it. Like, money wasn't like my number one value. Happiness was. But it didn't align with my partner, so it caused a lot of conflict, and they were made to feel, by me, that I wasn't that supportive because they didn't see just leaving the job as the answer. So it's tough. Another thing to consider is how things are in the bedroom. Some people choose to wait until they're married before being intimate, but it's just really important to have communication and mutual understanding about what role that plays in their lives. What happens if the sex drive changes? What happens if novelty wears off? What if someone faces a physical change because of a health issue? How adventurous is the other person? What are your feelings about pornography? Is that okay? Does the other person want more initiation? Oftentimes, sex early in the relationship can mask other problems or make other problems not look as important. But then when sex ends up being the problem, it's a big deal. It is. It's a subject where people find it really difficult to talk about, and making it really, really hard to resolve it. So lastly, I want to bring up, like, is there something that I'm expecting to change in our relationship after we get married? A lot of times people can be like, well, I knew that they were selfish, but I didn't think they would stay that way when they had kids. It's like, really? Or people are people. Or, they've never been responsible with money, but I just thought that as time went on, they would grow up. It's like, no, sometimes when people are bad with money, they're always chronically bad with money. Be honest with yourself. Do you think that your partner is magically going to change, and the things that annoy you about them are suddenly going to be fixed once you get married? More than likely they will not be. Remember that you cannot be like a motivational speaker for someone else if it comes to them like having a hard time getting a job or motivating themselves to do things. It's like really in your partner's hands. And when that gets out of whack, it's really tough. So if you notice yourself doing that before you get married, you got to really, really, really examine that. Okay, that was a lot to take in. This is a longer video, but these are the initial questions I would ask. I'm going to go much deeper into different areas that I've experienced, but I would love for you all to share with me your thoughts on this, anything that I missed, and if I missed anything, then I can just do a whole nother video about that too. All right, I am sending you all so much love. You all take care.